Have you ever asked yourself, why didn't anybody tell me about this when I started investing? Well, you're not alone. My name's Andrew Majoros, founder of WealthGuard LifeSolutions, and I specialize in helping hardworking Canadians like you discover powerful financial strategies that the ultra wealthy have been using for generations. Today, we're going to dive deep into a comparison between traditional RRSPs and infinite banking, a strategy that puts you in complete control of your wealth and offers true financial freedom. Years ago, I worked at a camp in a gold mine, spending long days and nights away from home, giving everything I had to earn a paycheck, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And like many of you, I vividly remember the frustration of seeing nearly half my hard-earned money disappear into taxes, especially after putting in overtime. It felt unfair and incredibly discouraging. And when I finally learned about infinite banking, my first thought was, how has no one ever told me about this? That was the moment I decided I had to implement the strategy myself. And more than that, I dedicated my entire career to teaching people just like you how to build wealth tax-free, putting your hard-earned money back where it belongs, in your pocket. Because I was you before, until somebody taught me. Let's get into it. So, quick overview. First thing we're going to do is take a look at RRSPs and the savings versus the benefits that you get from them. And we're going to take a look at an insurance policy that's suitable for infinite banking. And then we're going to take a look at using an insurance policy for infinite banking as a replacement for your RRSP. And so first off, we need to baseline this case. We're going to look at a 35-year-old male who makes $150,000 a year, and he's living in BC. So those are the numbers that we're going to work with. So to start, we have this seed versus crop calculator. One of our members from the IB Canada group made. It's a really handy tool for illustrating RRSPs. And if you were a farmer, would you rather be taxed on one seed or on the whole crop from that seed? So when you say it like that, it's pretty obvious, right? But that's a trap that a lot of us fall into with the RRSPs, that we save a little bit now, but we get killed down the road. And you may not know how much you're actually paying down the road. So we're going to take a look at that right now. So age 35, he ends contributions at 65, 30 years of contributions, $150,000 a year income. So he contributes $26,500 a year, which is the limit before he starts getting penalized for over contribution. And the growth rate is 8% a year, which is pretty aggressive. And I just want to take a minute to talk about that. I just did a case for an oil field worker, and he had $1 million in his RRSP, and he was letting the bank manage it. And the financial advisor from the bank had him in mutual funds, and he said, oh no, it's a low fee fund, right? But it was actually a mutual fund which had a bunch of other mutual funds in it. So he was actually ending up paying 4% management expense fees every single year. So, you know, an 8% return, you'd actually need a 12%, 10 to 12% return if you're paying high management fees on your mutual funds. So that's something else to be aware of if you do have an RSP. And we do have a solution. We set him up with a manager, and you know, he's only paying 1.5% right now, which is you know, about $25,000-$30,000 a year he's putting back into his pocket. So moving on, so making $150,000 a year, his marginal tax rate is 38.29%, and his average tax savings per year is $10,000. And I just want to show you guys over here for a second. So $150,000 a year. He's paying in total tax $132,000 with his deduction. So his after-tax income is $117,000 a year, which that's an important number. We'll circle back to that number in a bit. So his total contributions over the years, $795,000, and he's saved, yahoo, $304,000 by contributing every year into his RRSP. So with his aggressive growth rate, we can look at age 65, the value of his portfolio is $3.24 million. And at death, which is 85 is the average life expectancy for a male in Canada, 84 and a half actually. So we're just gonna go with the average here. So that gives him 20 years in retirement and a 2% growth rate, because we don't want him in aggressive stocks in retirement, because if it drops 20%, that throws off the whole plan. So looking at that, so if he was just living off the annual interest income from that, it would be $64,000 a year. And he'd be paying 16.9% tax. He'd be paying about $10,952 in tax every year. And so his total tax throughout retirement, if he was just living off the interest, would be $219,000. But, so there's a problem with tax and RSPs when you pass away. And it does roll over to your spouse if you have a spouse, but once that spouse passes away, the same thing happens. So if he just lived off the interest and he had a $3.24 million portfolio at death, that'd be a 50% taxation rate. So he would pay $1.6 million in tax would be payable upon death, and added with his $219,000, he'd pay $1.84 million in tax on his RRSP. So he paid $1.84 million in tax in order to save $304,000 in tax. So that's actually 6.045 times more, or 504.5% more than he saved. I don't know, that doesn't sound like the greatest deal to me. But let's just say, okay, that's interest. Let's say he was living off the interest income and his principal. So he was collecting $198,000, $280 for 20 years of his retirement. So that would bump his average tax rate to 30%, 30.5%, and taxation through retirement, he'd be paying $1.21 million in tax during that time, as he was drawing down every year his $198,000. And his total taxation throughout retirement, yeah, it's the same number, 2.10, because he's going to draw that down to 0 at 85, which puts him at a longevity risk. If he lives over 85, he's not going to have any more money for retirement, right? That's it. So in this case, he pays $1.21 million in order to save $304,000. So it's 3.977 times more, or 297.7% more than what he saved. And, you know, you look at that, you go $198,000, like that's quite a bit of money, right? Like that's, a guy could retire pretty easily off of that. Oh, and one more thing for this case, for this argument case, this guy wants to keep his same lifestyle. He wants to have his same level of income in retirement as he does now, because he wants to travel more. He wants to give away money to his family. He wants to donate to charity. He doesn't want to retire with a lower lifestyle, lower income level than he has. So we're going to take a look and see if we can help him do that. So with the RRSP, he's making $198,000 a year for the next 20 years in his retirement. So if we take a look at that, So 198,280, and he doesn't have to pay into his CCP or any other deductions, any other taxes. So just straight tax is $60,000. So his take home, his after tax income that he can spend is $137,743. So the next thing we need to take a look at is that going to cover him? Because the Bank of Canada, the government of Canada, they have this 2% inflation target. I know we've heard a lot about it during the pandemic, and there's been a lot of talk on it in the news, but that's the standard what they want to shoot for, right? So if we take a look at $117,000, which is his current income, and we extrapolate using the 2% inflation target that our government has. So by the time he's at retirement time, he's going to need $212,164. And just circling back where I got the $117,000 from, that's his current after-tax take-home pay. After making $150,000, that's what he gets to spend right now. So planning for him to spend the same amount in the future, at 65, he's going to need $212,000 a year. At age 75, he's going to need $258,000 a year. At age 85, that goes up to $315,000 a year. And by age 90, it's $348,000 a year. So you can see it over time, 2%, it's kind of like a runaway train. It starts getting crazy. So thanks for the government for the fiscal responsibility for devaluing our currency like that. So what happens is, if he draws down $137,000 after paying, he draws down 198, pays tax, then he has 137 to spend. Well, in year one, he has a shortfall of $74,000. And every year after that, it's going to get worse. 78, 82, by the time he's 75, there's $120,000 a year shortfall. And by age 85, there's no more money left. That's tapped out. And if he lives longer than that, he's got a $320,000 a year shortfall to maintain his same level of spending. So now we're going to take a look at, we kind of baseline the RRSP. Now let's take a look at a life insurance contract. So this is just for illustration purposes. So male, age 35, non-smoker. And we're going to give him the same premium amount, the $26,500, as the RRSP contribution. We're going to try and compare apples to apples. So this is the life insurance contract. So you can see it builds up cash value. The thing about these life insurance contracts is they've been around before the Income Tax Act. And there's only a certain type of life insurance. You may or may not have heard about it. This is not term insurance. This is called participating whole life insurance. And it's participating because you get to participate in the investment fund. And with this particular company, Equitable Life, owning this type of life insurance contract actually makes you a shareholder in the company. This is traditional infinite banking. So it's called a mutual company. So you're actually contractually a shareholder of this company. And if they ever did go public, you'd be entitled to a shareholder buyout from this. So making the same contributions, at age 65, there's $1.8 million of cash value sitting in there. And if he passed away, it would generate a $3.4 million death benefit. So the thing with these type of contracts is not only does your cash value grow every year that you contribute and from the growth of the policy, but your death benefit always goes up every year. The more cash you put in and the more dividends that you reinvest, the more the death benefit grows. So you can see when we started here, it started out as a $664,000 death benefit. At age 65, it's $3.4 million. And at age 85, when the average life expectancy, it's at $7.3 million with a $6 million cash value. So let's take a look at that, comparing it side by side with the RRSP. So comparing apples to apples, so he takes out $137,000 policy loan at age 65. So there's interest on those policy loans. That contributes to the growth of the policy. So when you take a policy loan out on your own policy, there's an interest charge. But when you pay that interest charge, it goes back into your policy, most of it. But unlike a regular loan, you don't have to pay the interest back, or there's no like loan agreement structured where you have to make it on the first of every month. Because the life insurance is an asset, and also there's something we can do with the banks. It's called an insured retirement strategy, or insurance retirement plan. So the bank will give you money, not expecting to be paid back for this, knowing that the death benefit is going to cover the loan cost at death, right? So if we compare apples to apples, $137,734, the same drawdown, same after-tax drawdown. Any money you take out of these policies is also tax-free. And all the growth in the policies is tax-free. So if he draws down the same $137,000 every year, and he lets his policy loan roll over every year, he's gonna have a shortfall of 1 year. He's gonna run out of money 1 year sooner than the RRSPs. So you can see he's at age 84, he's at $5.6 million policy loan, and here we're at 5.7 in cash value. So that's the crossover point. So somewhere in his 85th year, he'll be good till 84, and somewhere in his 85th year, he's not going to be able to pull out as much. There's still going to be growth on the policy. It's still going to be growing every year, but there's a point of no return, right? Where the bank is going to stop lending from you, even if there is growth. It's just going to continue to compound, and the bank needs to make sure, and the insurance company, that the death benefit covers any loan amounts you have outstanding. So let's break it down, the facts clearly here. With RRSPs, yes, you get immediate tax deduction, but the government gets their share later, and often at a higher tax rate. Your savings grow inside a market-based system subject to volatility, risk of significant loss, precisely when you need security the most, at retirement time. So let's consider the life insurance policy. Your money grows tax-free, safely, consistently, and predictably, free from market fluctuations. You maintain liquidity and control, leveraging your money multiple times for investments or emergencies without losing growth potential. So we didn't take a look at that, but head to head, you could say the RRSP, you get 1 extra year out of it. But remember, you need to get a 8% a year return, which means you need a 10 to 12% return if you're using mutual funds with a high management expense ratio. And you're also looking at the volatility of the market. Whereas with the just life insurance, the participating whole life insurance contract, that's boring. It grows at 5.5% a year, tax-free. But the other thing you need to realize is once your dividends declared for a year, once you get your growth in your policy, it's contractually guaranteed not to go down in value. So you don't have the same market risk and volatility that you would in an RRSP. It's safe, steady, it chugs along. So head to head, they're pretty comparable. But the real secret of these life insurance contracts is using them for the infinite banking concept. And how you do that is because you have access to your money, unlike a RRSP where you can take it out, but you got to pay that tax. The government's waiting for you to pay that tax on that. So in this example, at 45, he takes a $300,000 policy loan out. And I just use something simple, like he invests in Chevron. He gets a 5% a year growth on that and a 4.3% dividend every year. And what happens is when you take a policy loan out, so you take out a policy loan out for 6.5%, that creates a deductible expense if you use it for investments or business purposes. So that 4.5% dividend that he would normally have to pay his marginal or average tax rate on, same as his income, that gets deducted. And so he can put that money into his policy tax-free. And then even that other 2% or 1.5% goes against his income that he has to pay tax on as well. So there's a huge benefit there just in the tax savings alone, as well as any growth in the policy is tax-free as well. So using this example, he takes out a $300,000 policy loan and invested in Chevron. So he's getting, here's his investment account and here's his policy loan amount. So he gets 5% growth on his stock, and then that 4.5%, 4.3% interest, we're going to use just to pay down the interest on the policy loan. And then he keeps repeating and recycling. So at age 50, he takes out another $170,000 loan to invest. At age 55, he takes $270,000. And you can use this for real estate. You could use this for any type of investment that you want. I just use this as an example because it's simple. You have your capital growth and you have your dividend component. So it works really good with the infinite banking concept with this. So with this example, if he starts at age 45 and continues on till age 65, so he'll have a $2.2 million investment portfolio in his Chevron stock, and he'll have a $1.9 million policy loan still outstanding. So then we net that out. He pays off his policy loan, pays the capital gains on that portion that he's used to sell that stock to pay off the policy loan, and he restarts at age 65 because now this is retirement time, which still gives him a $692,000 of Chevron stock, which continue to grow and continue to give him his 4.3% dividends. And just to be clear, that the dividends that you get from a stock are not the same as the dividends you get from an insurance company. Those dividends you get from the insurance company are tax-free. That growth in your policy is tax-free. Whereas the dividends you receive from stocks are taxable at your current income level. So if you're paying 30-40% tax on your income, that's what you're going to have to pay on your dividends that you receive. So using that same example, and he draws down, we're going to consider he just draws down the same amount, the 137,743, just to compare apples to apples. So at age 75, his investment account's at 1.1 million, and he's got $1.6 million outstanding. And we remember before, at age 84, the $5.7 million in outstanding policy loans was his limit. Well, using this strategy, he's only at $4.2 million of policy loans that are outstanding. And with the policy at age 85 here, he's got a $6 million cash value and a $7.3 million death benefit. So if he passes away at age 85, $7.3 million is going to get paid out tax-free to his estate or his benefit to his beneficiaries. And this loan of $4.2 million is going to get wiped out. And it also, if he lives past age 85, he still has like about $1.7 million in cash value that he still has access to. So you can see it's not about the policy, it's about how you use it. And with these particular life insurance contracts, the participating whole life insurance contracts, this gives you the flexibility to use it like your own banking system, and it protects and grows your money in a tax-free way. So you can see, even if he lived to age 90, there'd be no longevity risk, right? And his investment account is still chugging along as well. Like he, at 85, he still has a $1.8 million investment account in his stock, and he has $1.7 million. So he's got $3 million just in cash value, and then the additional $1.3 million death benefit top up, right? You don't get the cash value and the death benefit, you get the death benefit, and then minus any loans that you have outstanding, right? That's what the payout is. So just with this example, it's pretty good, but like we said before, he wanted to maintain that same level of lifestyle. Like with this $137,000, he's short every year. $74,000 the first year, $120,000 at 75, and he's $300,000 short if he lives over that, right? So what do we do? Well, I did another example here, and I did a $50,000 a year policy. Now, I wouldn't recommend, and he probably wouldn't qualify for a $50,000 a year policy just on his own, but he's got kids. He could do a $5,000 a year policy on each kid if he had 2 kids, so that's $10,000 a year. And he could do a $10,000 or $15,000 a year policy on his wife as well, right? It's not about one policy, it's about creating a system of policies to create and store your wealth, right? Because if you think about it, how much of your paycheck do you put in the bank? All of it, right? Why wouldn't you put as much money in your own bank that you could. That money is going to, you control, and you're going to compound it for the rest of your life. So using this example, same guy, just $50,000 a year policy. I just illustrating this is for illustration purposes. Like, this is not financial advice, but just to show, like, instead of having 4 different policies, like, we're just going to combine that amount of premiums put into life insurance policies and how that can perform, right? And how that looks. And what I did here, so we did the same thing, and you could start a little bit earlier too. You can start at day 1. Again, this is just illustration purposes to kind of make it simple, not too complicated. I know there's a lot of numbers flying around, so thanks for bearing with me. So in this example, he starts a bit earlier. So he starts at age 40. He has his, this is where it starts. So he takes a $200,000 policy loan, invests it. He gets his 5% growth, and then his 4.3% interest, dividends, goes back into his policy to knock down the policy loan. So if he did that, same sort of deal, you know. At age 45, he takes out another $300,000. You can see it jumps up every 5 years. You know, age 50, he takes out another $400,000. Age 55, he takes out another $450,000. Age 60, he takes out another $600,000. So if he did the bigger premiums and invested using the infinite banking concept the same way, taking policy loans, creating a deductible expense, investing in income generating assets, using the income to pay down the policy loans, and using that deductible expense to make those payments tax free, and cycling the money back in and continuing to get the appreciation or the growth on the stock or the property, and then using the cash flow to pay down and knock down the interest. You can see the numbers got significantly bigger. And then we do the same thing. We pay off the policy loan at retirement time, pay the capital gains on whatever that is, and he's going to end up with $1.4 million in his investment account. And then we're going to start doing the policy loans for the inflation adjusted numbers to match his current take home after tax income today. So in 30 years from now, it'll be $212,000. And then, so he takes the policy loan and then minus the interest. So he's at $162,000 policy loan. And he's going to keep rolling that over, right? Rolling that over. And using this method, yeah, he's quite good, because this is it's a little bit overkill, I'm not going to lie, but I just want to show you guys. So at age 85, if he did the $50,000 a year premium, he'd have $11 million in cash value, and he'd have a $13 million death benefit going to his beneficiaries. So in this example, if he used the policy loans for his retirement income, matched the inflation adjusted numbers, you know, going up to $315,000 at age 85, he'd still only have drawn down $6.9 million of that, and he'd have $3.8 million in his investment account. So he'd have still have $4 million in cash value in his policy. So if you minus the 6.9 from the $13 million, so 7 from, well, almost 14, he'd deliver a $7 million tax-free benefit to his beneficiaries, to his wife or to his kids, or however he chooses to set that up. And he'd also have a $3.8 million investment account, which he would have to pay capital gains on that. That would be taxable. It wouldn't be taxable as income, but it'd be taxable as capital gains. So he'd get to keep probably $3 million about that. So roughly a $10 million benefit going to his estate, while he maintained the same level of spending power throughout his entire retirement as he has today, making $150,000 a year. So yeah, just to wrap this up, you know, head to head, there's similar monetary outcomes, but there's no volatility, much less risk. And, you know, in this example as well, he would still deliver a $1.3 million death benefit if he died at 85. So it's the same amount of retirement income, but a much better benefit to the family. Then if he uses it for the infinite banking concept and uses it to make investments, it becomes significantly better, putting a lot more genes or having a lot more spending capability. It still wouldn't match. This example still wouldn't match quite. He'd still run out of money, but it's getting closer. And then using the other example, the $50,000 a year policy, you know, in this case, like what I would recommend is somewhere probably in between the 26,000 and 50,000. It'd be like more like a $30,000 or $35,000 a year, using it to invest in safe assets, income generating assets, whether it's real estate or like a safe haven like Chevron. He can set himself up for a very nice retirement income, meeting his current income level, and still pass on, you know, several $1 million to the family for the next generation, right? And, you know, that's where we'd do some more family planning and set up a system for the kids or the grandkids and have a place for that money to go, right? Because if you get a $3 or $4 million paycheck, you're going to want to have to control that and put that in a safe place, right? And set up your system for generational wealth instead of just giving all that money. All that money that we're making here goes to the government, right? If we don't have a plan, the government's got a plan for us, right? And this is one of the last vehicles that we can use to grow and protect our wealth and shield it from the government and shield it from the banks, right? So the next step is book a call. I'd love to meet with you and book a call. My Calendly link, it'll be in your email and down below, and we'll run your numbers. We'll do a financial needs analysis. We'll take a look at your goals, where you want to be in retirement, and we'll see what works for you, and we'll come up with a strategy and a plan together. Imagine waking up tomorrow knowing you're on the path to real financial freedom. No more worrying about market crashes, taxes eroding your savings, or government control over your retirement. This is your opportunity to transform your financial future and build lasting generational wealth. Click the button below now to book your personalized strategy session, and let's secure your financial future you truly deserve. And if you don't book a video, or if you don't book a consultation right now and you're still uncertain, check out my YouTube channel, and I'll also be following up with you with a few more videos. I'm not spamming you, but I got a few more videos that help explain this concept a little bit more, and maybe using it for car financing or how to set up that generational system. Keep your eyes peeled, and I promise it's only a few videos and I'm not going to spam you. So, but I'd love to see you. I'd love you to book a call. This is what it's all about. I hope you say, why didn't anybody tell me this before?